Hey guys, this is Yoda, and this video will be a VOD review of one of the new old dungeons coming in 10.2. This is on the PTR, and we're doing Throne of the Tides today. So this dungeon is super old, but a lot of it has been completely changed, so I would consider it kind of a new dungeon. So we start off the first pull. I'll pause it once all the mobs are pulled. I decided not to go too big. So there's a few mobs in this pull we'll go over. The most important one is the Oracle. This one is extremely dangerous. It has Water Bolt, which is just a random bolt on non-tank, can be on tank too. Healing Wave, which is a heal, and Hex. So Hex is by far the most dangerous. It's a curse, it's not a magic, it's a curse. And it can randomly go on the tank for some reason. As of the PTR, maybe they'll fix it on live, who knows. If your tank gets hexed, then the mobs will just wandering around like hitting everyone because your tank is disoriented. It's like as if your tank died, so really bad if hex goes off on the tank. These invaders are kind of just fodder. They have like a dash. If you pull aggro on them randomly, they will one-shot you. But they have a dash towards the tank that does some damage. These snapdragons are super dangerous. So they have a fixate. Or if they're not fixating, they'll hit the tank. But every time they melee, they apply a bleed. So I have 4 stacks right now of this bleed. This bleed is like really not normally. Hopefully it gets nerfed before this goes live. But if it doesn't, if you're a tank, then make sure you have some way to deal with the bleed, like double evoker with cauterizing flame or dwarf. Or if you're a DPS and you're getting focused, you need to pop a defensive. And probably stun the mob also while it's fixating you. Alright, so this is the first pull. There's only one kick, which is the Oracle. So it's pretty easy. So we let it play out a bit here. I dwarfed the bleed. And it's first pull of the dungeon. Honestly, I probably could have gone bigger, especially on PTR where people are usually playing more coordinated. Next, we have 2 of these oracles. Usually this would be like in the first pull if you're going crazy or trying to do like a fast route. But I guess I didn't decide to in this run. I think it was like maybe my first time taking the dungeon. So it's double oracle here. The hex is random target. It can be the tank once again. And this sentinel is really annoying too. So we'll talk about the sentinel real quick. He has 2 moves. One is the shell breaker. It puts a debuff on your tank, which makes him take, I think, 20% more damage. So if this guy is like in a pack with a bunch of other stuff, you're going to be taking massive damage as a tank. And then also he has Crushing Depths, which puts a debuff. You can kind of see it here. It's a Healing Absorb. The Healing Absorb is massive. It's like more than your full health bar. And you take ticking damage while it's on you. It is very similar to the third boss in Temple of the Jade Serpent, except that debuff was on tanks. This is just on a random person, and it comes from trash. This guy's also immune to CC, by the way. One tactic we used for the Crushing Depths is to LOS it. Like later on, there'll be 2 of these guys. We pull them next to the pillar, and then you can LOS it. It does recast, so you just have to like perma LOS. It's kind of annoying. So after this section, we fight the mini boss. I believe this is unskippable. The elevator, I think, doesn't turn on until this guy's dead. This is 2 Snapdragons and the Ravager. These mobs are honestly kind of easy because it's just 2 Snapdragons. The mini-mouse doesn't do much. She has a frontal, which applies a dot, and this bolt, which is like just a thing on the ground that you dodge. That's really all she does. Just don't stay in front of her. This barrage cast time is really quick, so you can't really react. You just have to not be in front of her already. You can see these just 2 Snapdragons running down my allies here. But yeah, there's not much to this. If you fight this alone, it's super easy, and most time you will fight this alone. Okay, so after this dies, we go on the elevator. You no longer have to wait for the elevator. You just click this. It's like kind of like a bubble elevator, I guess. As soon as you arrive at the top, by the way, once you click the elevator, you've already set events in motion. So as soon as you arrive at the top, 1 second, you'll see she spawns a bunch of these mobs that jump from the windows. And some of them are murlocs that auto-aggro you. So if you're a rogue, you need a pre-stealth. Like as soon as you get up the elevator, you stealth. So there's some murlocs here that'll auto-aggro you and jump on you. Then just a couple invaders here. Here are the murlocs. 1 oracle, 1 tempest witch, I believe it's called. So this tempest witch has 2 moves. One is the lightning bolt. It's just your regular average bolt, no debuff or anything. You can go on anyone, and she also puts out a debuff. This mob is similar to the Thunder Callers in Halls of Valor. So she just has a bolt, and she puts a debuff out. The debuff is dispellable. Pretty simple. There's in one Oracle and one Tempest Switch. So this is still pretty tame for early on. The Murlocs just jump around. They don't really do anything damage-wise. So this pull's pretty easy. Next is the double Sentinel pull. Notice our healer is putting down the X marker. He wants me to tank the mobs here so that we can LOS Crushing Depths, basically. They kind of sink their Shellbreaker here, but it doesn't stack up, I think, for now. Maybe they'll change it. So that's Crushing Depths. It goes on him. He LOSs, then it recasts, and then that guy LOSs. And then we just repeat this until they die. You can try to tank it with a strong personal or a cloak like he just did, which puts it on cooldown so no one has to LOS, which is kind of nice. So that's this pull, just 2 Sentinels. This section that we're coming up on has a lot of casters. So you notice your choices here are either fight 3 mobs or pull 4 casters. So if you're not a Pally or a VDH, especially early season, you might end up just fighting 3 mobs. Obviously I'm a Paladin here, so I do pull all of it, I think. If you have a lot of cooldowns, you can try to pull all of it and just burn it down too. Be careful for the mini-boss. I was trying to pull just the mini-boss with the 3, but it actually aggroed the backpack too, so this is a pretty spicy pull. We end up having mini-boss plus 3 Tempest Switches plus the Oracle, which is pretty spicy. In these packs, when you have multiple casters, the first priority to interrupt should always be the Oracle, by the way. These lightning bolts, especially early season low keys, will not be one-shots, but the Oracle can the heal is devastating for your timer. The water bolt is basically the same as the lightning bolt, and the Hex, if it ever goes in the tank, is just instantly GG, so very high priority to stop this mob. There's not really any new mobs here, it's just the mini-boss with a bunch of casters, so make sure you're on point with your interrupts, AoE stops. When you run out of interrupts and stuff, make sure you use a personal. I definitely wouldn't recommend doing a pull this big. In fact, it was kind of pulled by accident. Yeah, after some messy stuff, including my death, we do finish it off, I think. Yeah, I run back. Oh, okay, we went to reset the pull. So we reset the pull. As you can see, it can be very dangerous on PTR doing this kind of pull. Fortunately, I have my shield here to kick the Oracle in. And this is kind of tame enough, 3 casters. If you do end up opting into the 4 caster pull, watch out. It is scary, obviously, like I said, especially without those OP tanks that can interrupt everything. So we do this pull. Next, after that, you pull the mini-boss usually because it's patrolling and you don't want to fight it with anything else. Plus the 8 Snapdragons. So these Snapdragons are actually extremely scary mobs. I'm kind of panning my camera here, trying to wait for the Snapdragons to get to a good spot so I can pull them. The mini-boss, remember, is not that dangerous, it's some tank damage and something you have to dodge, but by itself it's usually not that scary. Okay, we're going for a different strategy, I guess. So instead of chaining the Snapdragons, we pull the casters. This caster pack, by the way, it may not look scary because it's only 3 mobs, but it's double Oracle. These Oracles are, like I said before, extremely scary, very high priority interrupts. My healer gets hexed there, but we have a caught from the augmentation. So yeah, make sure you're on top of these Oracle interrupts. If you have to assign interrupts and you have very limited, I would say make sure you stop Hex and Healing Wave, and then if bolts are going off, then they're just gonna go off. You have to heal through, I guess. Alright, so that's this. Onward. Next we pull 3 casters. For some reason we still haven't pulled these Snapdragons. I guess we're really scared. 3 casters is basically the same pull. You could pull this with a boss later, I think we discovered that was a decent strategy, but for now, we're just kind of pack by packing it. Alright, so after these we pull 8 dogs. I call them dogs, but they're Snapdragons. So if you are a dwarf or you have evokers in your group, it's very important to coordinate as the tank what you're using to dispel the bleed. This bleed is insanely strong. If you just walk up and tank them, and you don't know what's going on, you will die. So, as a paladin, I kind of have an edge here. I can dwarf, I can bubble bop if needed, and I also have double caught with me, so this pack is easier for me than normal. If you're just a normal tank walking up here and you don't have these tools, just be very careful, be ready to kite. One thing that's super useful here is like Vortex from a Boomy or Slow Poison from a Rogue. These mobs are very similar to like the Frogs and Halls of Infusion, except like instead of the poison doing virtually nothing until it hits 10 stacks where it kills you, it just hurts all the way. No matter how many stacks you have, pretty much. Slows are extremely useful here. So yeah, I dwarfed like the first set of bleeds. I think I went really high on stacks here, planning to bubble, maybe? Yeah, then I don't know what, we had 2 caught, so I like took 1 caught and then get high stacks, then caught again. Then I bubbled, I guess. So yeah, you have to go through your bleed dispelling cooldowns. As you can see, this is like just 8 Snapdragons and it's like running us around like crazy. So yeah, make sure you're ready for this pack. This is extremely scary. Vortex, Slow Poison, all very useful. Yeah, if you get fixated, you can like stun the mob that's fixating you too to try to keep it grouped. That's a very good play. This pull is kind of easy. It's just one of each caster and the sentinel. Not much to it. Just kick the casters, don't die to the invaders, and don't die to crushing depths. That debuff is quite scary, but yeah, just don't die. Fast forward the pack since there's nothing new. Then we go to the boss. So the first boss is Lady Najar. She has 3 moves, I guess. So I guess 4 moves counting Water Bolt. So Water Bolt is very simple. Just kick. Even with the non-paladin, you have plenty of kicks to kick it. This Focus Tempest. So no one is 100% sure how it works, but I believe if you have all 5 players alive, then it will so it does a big hit and a small hit every time it does damage. So we'll pause until it does damage again. Right there. So it did a big hit on the DH and a small hit on the Evoker. If you have all 5 alive, you should not take the big hit more than once. But if you have Death, then she starts big hitting you, like she can do a repeat hit on the same person. Nothing more to say other than like if you get hit and you're scared, like communicate with your healer, but this is where you use your personals. Geysers, just dodge. In this phase, they're pretty easy. Shock Blast. This is, you can see like pick the rogue. This is kind of a dangerous mechanic that has one-shot potential. If it targets you, make sure you like feint. If you have any personals left, you can use it for that. I think end of season, you're probably saving your personals for this and then just healing through the Tempest. But for now, just personal the Tempest, and this probably won't one-shot you early on. We use TD and Cloak. That's crazy. When it goes off, it does shoot these balls out that'll stun you. And yeah, she just does this Tempest, kind of a healer check. At 60, I think, she goes to the middle. Yeah, so she spawns a bunch of ads and just spams Geysers. So these ads, there's only 3 important ones. There's the Frost Witches, there's 2 of them, and there's one big guy. Can't really find him on the screen. Oh, it's this guy, the Honor Guard. So the Frost Witches are simple. They just cast Frostbolt at their target. They also put a buff on themselves called Icy Veins, which basically just does what Icy Veins does for Frost Mages. You can spell steal it and purge it, or just kick. They're not too threatening. The main threat here is just dying to swirlies while you're trying to do AoE, so watch out for that. This Honor Guard jumps out at a range, I think, and shoots he does a frontal. You'll see it in a sec. It's called Trident Flurry, I believe. So he's about to jump. Yeah, Trident Flurry, just don't stand in it. Very simple. And these Murlocs just jump around, but they're not too dangerous. Just make sure your tank doesn't die to Frostbolt, and make sure people don't die to Swirlies. That's pretty much all there is to it. If you want to pad as a DPS, make sure you save your AoE cooldowns for the phase, obviously. And that's that. That's the intermission. She does it at 60, and I think 35, but I might be mistaken about the number, so we'll fast forward. Okay, it's 30. She goes to the middle at 30, and then she just does it again. Spawns a bunch of irrelevant Murlocs that you can't get threat on, and 1 Honor Guard and 2 Frost Witches. Those are the real mobs. The Murlocs are kind of just shitlings that don't matter. So you kill the ads to phase her, and then she just does this again. And she repeats mechanics for the rest of the fight. So after this boss, we kind of have to backtrack in the dungeon. The dungeon is designed so like the first boss, you like go to the end of the dungeon to fight the first boss, and then you backtrack for the rest of the dungeon. That's how the pathing works. It's kind of confusing at first, but once you've done it a couple times, it's easy. So you backtrack into this room where this guy jumps down. He has a few mechanics that are not that dangerous in my opinion, but here we go. So Crushing Claw is just a tank hit. Here it is. Bang. Does damage. Makes me take more damage. Who cares? Then he does Bubbling Fissure. So this boss is kind of about like area control. So you notice I'm tanking him near a wall. That's because there's a mechanic you can LOS later. And this fissure drops like a circle on every player. You kind of want to be somewhat stacked so the room doesn't get super ugly. So we stack up a bit. We kind of did a bad job there, but at least they're in the same zip code. This Festering Shockwave he's about to do is LOSable. At least on the PTR it was. Maybe they'll change it later. If you get hit, basically just knocks you back and puts a dot, does some damage. Then he does Awakened Ooze. So all of the swirlies we dropped before become oozes. You knock these away by like hitting them with damaging skills like Blade Flurry, Blade Dance, whatever. You want to kind of knock them away because if they run into you, then the ground under them does damage. For some reason also, like, they take full damage, I think, but it's... Okay, I guess they don't take full damage. I'm not really sure, but their damage to them does show up on details, I guess. So here's the fissure. We drop together, then we move around. I think it's, like, kind of better to move this boss, like, in a circle pattern around the room. Their 2-hour DPS didn't LOS. They took damage, they get a dot, right? That's the main check of this fight, I think. The claw doesn't really hurt, but... You know, if you have no mitigation, you will kind of take damage, like my health's dropping a bit here. Then he summons oozes again, and the fight repeats itself. You can, as long as you go around in a circle and your group drops the oozes, like, in an orderly fashion, I think the fight is kind of easy. It can get really chaotic, though, if you're, like, in a pug, and everyone is just standing, like, all around the room, every which way, and these oozes are, like, not stacked and just running at you from all angles. That can get really scary. But as long as you drop the oozes like properly, or not even properly, it's just like in an organized fashion, you'll be fine. So that's this boss. After the boss, you backtrack again. There's some eels in the walls. It's usually like, I got hit there. It's usually like pass one, then wait, then pass one, then wait, then pass one, then wait. If you have like a fast movement skill, then you can like skip waiting for one, but you know, it's risky. After that, we take the elevator back down, and this is the new checkpoint. This is the beginning of the dungeon, by the way. Before, there were like tentacles blocking the path here, but after you kill the second boss, you can come back down, and now this is the rest of the dungeon. There's 2 wings. We decided to go this way first. I'll pause once all the mobs are pulled. All right, so there's 3 mobs here, 3 types. There's the Seers, the Faceless Watchers, and the minions of Gershaw. So the Gershas aren't too complicated. They just cast Psionic Pulse, pretty short cooldown. Just basically, while you're fighting them, the raid is, or the group is taking pulsing damage. That's all you need to know. You can like try to manage AoE stops, but they cast it so many times, it's kind of hard to actually imagine you spamming AoE stops and reducing the damage by a significant amount. There's these Watchers. They do a tank hit, and they also do a pull into Swirly. So you'll see it do it here. So Clenching Tentacles is the pull, and then it does the swirly. It actually spam does this. It's kind of annoying, especially for casters. And also there's the Seer. So he channels Mind Flay. It's just kick. There's only 1 interrupt here, so just kick. And there's also, like, see these lines? This line that's in the circle here is spawned by the Seer. It's on a cooldown based on him. The most dangerous part here is getting wombo comboed. Like, this guy casts the tentacle into a line. That can be a wombo combo that you have to be very careful of. If you die here, just release. The checkpoint is very close. So that's this pack. Just kick, just dodge, don't get wombo comboed. And that's all. In terms of pull cadence, you kind of want to, like, not pull that many minions at a time. But these big guys you can chain, I think. They're not that threatening. They're just annoying. I don't think they're that threatening. All right, so that's this section. Kind of just chain as you feel comfortable. Then you get to a bunch of minions of Gersha. You can pull these with the boss if you have like all cooldowns, but the boss does have some like debuffs that he puts on people that can be painful. If you have Psionic Pulse plus that, someone could die, so we're fighting these for safety alone. All right, on to the boss. So this boss has two main like threatening mechanics. So the first is this totem, and he also puts a debuff, if you'll notice. Where is the totem? Oh, it's here. Okay, so while this totem is out, the boss attacks a lot faster. It's basically Wind Fury totem, like from Shamans. While it's out, he attacks way faster, and he also has a magic damage component to his attacks. So for tanks, you know, save a cooldown for DPS. Try to have burst damage for every totem and make sure you swap. He also puts these swirlies on the ground, but like just dodge. He also has debuffs. So you notice he put a Flame Shock on our DH there, instantly dispelled. He puts it out more often than you can dispel though. So like you'll have to sit it sometimes. I think that one was cheesed by Stasis. But yeah, throughout the fight, your healer will be falling behind on these debuffs. Like you see here, it has this one is sticking on our DH. So be aware of that. It's pretty good to coordinate like dispels with dwarves and personals. This boss is kind of scary, so we do lust him. And that is the whole fight. It's kind of like a pretty big numbers check. Like your tank gets to survive every totem while you kill it, and then also your healer has to not fall behind on the debuffs. It can be pretty challenging. All right, so that's the boss. Once he hits 25, the fight is basically over. The lore is like this jellyfish is mind controlling our humanoid friend. Below 25, he does Terrifying Vision, which is just LOS. And also there's this little bouncy ball that's running around doing damage to everyone, but the damage is so low that basically even if your healer's dead, I don't see anyone wiping from here. So we LOS this vision. You can LOS around the corals here. And that's that. So once the boss dies, you kind of have to walk back into the last section of the dungeon. You could go here first and come here last. It's like up to you. This area has 4 types of mobs. So there's the hunters, the aquamages, and then there's the little guys. I forget what they're called. And then there's the big water lilies. So this here I said the rogue AoE blind so I could set up a pull. I want to have like one tainted sentry in every pull, so that's why I had him blind here. So we pull this sentry. This is like the big water guy I was talking about. And then there's these aquamages and the hunters. So the hunters do throw spear. It's like a super short cooldown, and it targets like not the tank and just throws a spear at them. Kind of like in Underrot, I guess, similar mobs. It's pretty scary. And they also do a poison debuff on the tank, which doesn't matter too much. So we pull this guy in. There's also some small mobs, like they're called the corruptions here. Corruptions don't really do anything other than like eat target caps. When they die, they put a stacking disease on the group, which can time out. So ideally, you just like kill a sum and then move on, and then kill some and then move on. You don't perma roll the debuff, or you can just like immune through. These aquamages are just your generic bolters. They cast Aqua Blast, doesn't always target the tank. Just kick forehead. All right. So on PTR also, this sentry would cast Swell, and it was purgeable. Like you could purge him and the Swell would stop doing it. They recently posted patch notes where the Swell stops casting, or does not get stopped by purge. So this guy is going to be super scary. So here's the Swell. That was just one tick, right? Normally it would tick like 10 times. These throw spears, you kind of want to do AoE stops, but eventually you will run out. So just pop personals at that point and live. And that's this section. When those guys die, they spawn unstable corruptions. And you kind of just progress through like chaining these unstable corruptions and limiting the number of spearmen and aquamages, because you don't want to run out of kicks and you don't want to have like too many spears being thrown that your healer gets overwhelmed. You'll notice this debuff we have. This debuff increases shadow damage taken, so it's really spooky when you fight this with the tainted sentries, because when they swell, it's shadow damage. And we just pull more. Pretty much just, progress slowly through. I don't recommend pulling it all because you'll probably die to aquamages and spears. And then this debuff also stacks up really high and makes it scary. That's pretty much it for the section. This pack is actually very scary. It's like 6 Aquamages that are just perma bolting your group. One of the reasons people are saying VDH is like super meta for this season, because like VDH turns this into 6 target dummies, and any other tank fighting this is like in pain because his whole group is getting blasted the whole time. All right, so we fight this, do a bunch of AoE stops, interrupts, and then on to the double water alley pack. They're called Tainted Sentries, I guess. If you can no longer purge Swell, this is going to be a really hard pack. So we purge one, and you can kind of see the damage from this Swell since we can't purge it. Oh, actually, I guess we have 2 purges. Oh, he has Arcane Torrent. So the next one should be at least a single Swell. Yes, this Swell gets purged, then this one I think will go off. I sack the healer, and we have personals here. This one isn't too bad, I guess, because we have 0 stacks of the debuff, and it's only 1. But like, you know, on live, this is going to be double spell going off, and you might have stacks of debuff, so just be super careful. After that, we finish off mobs, and we proceed to the last boss. This boss has some RP. This boss is kind of all about managing space. So he starts off with Blotting Barrage. He picks 3 people. This can pick the healer. And then you have to drop your circles in kind of close to each other. It forms this dark splotch on the ground. And then we have like an ally that's giving us this cleaning fluid, basically. When you get this, you want to run over the splotches. And hopefully the splotches are dropped like close to each other so you can just clear efficiently. Then he does spawn these ads. These ads, when they spawn and when they die, it's very critical to remember that when they die, because it's kind of hard to see sometimes, they make a swirly. If you stand in it, you die. And that swirly also spawns like the black stuff on the ground. Then these splotches are casters, and the sludges put a stacking debuff on the tank. They need to die basically before your tank dies. If they live too long, the tank will get too many stacks and the tank will die. These ads, you kind of want to stack them up. You see the swirly when they die, and then kill them insta. And then the next circles you drop near the dark patches again. If the dark patches don't get dropped like near each other, it becomes very hard to clean, right? Because he picks 2 people. If those 2 people don't know where to go or they can't clean efficiently, then the room eventually gets covered. The main danger is if you get put in a checkmate scenario where the dark, like the black on the ground, surrounds the boss, and you can no longer be in melee with the boss, and then it's basically GG. You lost at that point. So the way you counteract it is you try to get all the ads to die together, and then also put the circles around where the ads died. At least that's my strategy. There will probably be more strategies later, but that's what we do for now. He also does Putrid Roar, which does some damage. It puts a debuff. When you're picked by the cleaning guy, you're immune to shadow damage, so you won't get hit by the Putrid Roar. You can also stand wherever you want. And that's the whole boss. Basically, this boss I think is going to cause a lot of frustration in early pugs because people aren't going to drop their like circles in the correct spot. They're not going to clean properly. The ads might die in a weird way. Just remember that this boss can be super scary, and if you don't do the mechanics, you will get checkmated and lose. So just be careful. All right, then when the boss dies, you become super empowered and you kill this massive jellyfish that's outside. Hopefully, so if you care about details damage, which I know some people do, like a quarter of your overall in the dungeon is dealt to this guy while you're buffed in like 10 seconds. So if you care, then save cooldowns for this, but realistically, it's not important at all. He's gonna die. I've never seen someone wipe in this phase. As long as you like are alive, he will die. It doesn't really matter how fast he dies because it's like gonna be within 20 seconds no matter what. All right. That's Throne of the Tides. Thanks everyone for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to catch me in Twitch chat, and I'll see you guys on the next one.